post-fight interview, something that has never, ever been done ever before. First time. The man to my left, Chris the Bone Machine, the hero without a cape. My friend, you have completed a solo swim from Robben Island to Dusser Island in 14-degree water. Mind you, that's the natural habitat for great whites, if I'm not mistaken, right? So great whites and all sorts of things that are probably not as hard as you, but are much bigger than you, the bigger teeth. Also swim and roam the water, or to raise awareness and raise funds to take underprivileged children, which you guys are, man, it brings tears to my eyes, bringing from communities into Boys High and making them Springboks. So what I understand becoming a Springbok is a Springbok father looks after their children a certain way. A Springbok employee shows up a certain way. A Springbok acts in a community a certain way. So I know you don't like bragging, you don't like speaking about yourself that way, but I get to do it today because there are literally hundreds of thousands of people that have joined groups and have aided you in the effort of what you are not trying to achieve, but achieving. So I want to unpack, I say this is a post-fight interview because I want to unpack the couple of hours before we go in the water, the actual swim, maybe because a lot of people that are health freaks watch our episodes. I keep on bringing healthy people on the show and unpacking nutrition. So maybe go a little bit into the nutrition. There's a lot of weird rules. One of them I just found out, as you approach the island, you can't, here's the island, let me swim to the island. You're like, no, you have to go from the back and swim another hour. So the island's right here, but we're an hour away. So first of all, congratulations, brother, for making it alive out of that incredible achievement. First man to ever do it, or woman, first person to ever do it. Welcome back to the show. This is the second swim of the trilogy. We are hyped up to have you here and share the experience with us.
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to say is that I didn't do it. We did it. Just want to add there that Peet Crowther, or the Crow.
The Crow was with you,
the
yes.
The Crow was with me, so it wasn't me on my own. And then our support crew is an intricate part of the team. So it wouldn't have been possible without a couple of important people, and Peet's a massive part of that team, and then the captains of the two boats, and Jacques, who was feeding me, massive role that he played. So it was a collective effort, and it wouldn't have been possible without everyone.
He was in charge of the nutrition.
He was in charge of keeping me alive, yes.
But by the way, I saw a couple of photos just before you guys hit the water on the group that we created, and maybe Elsie, you can pull off a magic trick here. Boom. Here's the still image of, it was actually a bucket of like liquids and foods and stuff that you consume. Yes. So, but we'll get into that.
We'll get into that. No, it's fine. When the opportunity allows, then we can unpack that. I mean, what do you want me to talk about first exactly? The build up to the crossing, or? I mean, because you said a whole lot there in the beginning, so try to work it out, yeah.
First of all, we know why you're doing it, to create awareness, to raise funds. We've raised a bunch of funds. And at the end of the show, obviously our call to action will be on a link at the bottom to contribute and to support what this incredible human has achieved selflessly for the benefit of his pupils, who, by the way, I know because I've seen it. We had an opportunity to spend some time at your school, worship the ground that you walk on. Literally, I've never seen that. I've never had a teacher, maybe I mustn't use the word touch me in that way because that's going to be a bit weird, but I've never had a teacher have this much impact on me, and I'm kind of jealous because the boys have you.
I think what was the most unique experience of my life is when we arrived at the airport. I didn't know, but
on the way back.
So after completing the swim, actually there's a couple of things leading up to that. But if I think of that WhatsApp group that was created, there were several boys that made videos and shared videos, wishing us well, which struck a chord. But when we arrived at
that was insane. That was so cool to watch.
Yeah, and I think there was the one from my schoolhouse boys. Well, I'm not at schoolhouse anymore, but the schoolhouse boys did one. And when the one pupil said, we love you, I was I got a little bit teary lying in bed looking at that, but I also got incredibly G'd. It was like quite I experienced a range of emotions. Like one, I wanted to, I was fired up, and the other one, I was like, sure, it makes me miss schoolhouse quite a lot. But it also made me realize that no matter what happens in that water, I cannot give up.
Yeah.
But when we arrived at the airport, the headmaster had offered for boys to be there when I arrived. We were playing a fixture against Cares, so there's at least 800 boys participating in that fixture, so there's not going to be a lot who are available. But when I had collected my bag and I exited, there were probably about 30 or 35 boys.
Amazing.
And they had made some banners, and they were all going like chanting and screaming.
Bone machine.
And it was just nice to run into this embrace of boys, and we were celebrating together, and we were standing there like jumping around and chanting, and that was something that I'll never forget.
Beautiful, man.
Yeah, special.
So that's the ultimate win. But how do we get there? So I'm desperate to jump in your mind and figure out. Let's, as a post-fight interview, let's figure out, how do you mentally prepare the night before? Because 55 kilometer drive for me is hard. Like to drive 55 k's is hard for me. Yeah. You swam it in 16-degree weather, in the natural habitat of great white sharks. Okay, in your mind, how do you prepare?
I think this is quite an intricate answer, and if
Please.
you don't mind, I've got to go back to our False Bay crossing, which we did in November, which
Yes.
you and I have briefly discussed.
Yes.
And I think back to that day when you and I sat and had that cup of coffee together, and I was in a good space that day.
Yes.
But what you don't know is that several hours later, I ended up in hospital. So I think as a consequence of
I'm having the same coffee. You're having the same coffee now.
I am. Hopefully I
Hopefully
don't
it
pass
wasn't the
kidney stones
coffee.
tomorrow.
So that was kidney stones, right?
So yeah, but I mean, again, like, you and I were hyped up about what we could potentially do together, and I went home, and life goes on. And then on that Saturday morning, I wanted to go and thank Rocco Mating and Tux, because I'd been training there quite a bit. And while I was talking to him, I thought, geez, I've got quite an intense pain I'm experiencing in my abdomen and my back, and I thought I must have picked up a UTI. And I politely, conversed with him for a while, and then I got in the car and I phoned my wife. I said, listen, I'm coming home. I'm not feeling, so peachy. And she said, please give me a cappuccino on the way home. I said, there's not even time for that. So I got home and...
Sounds like my life.
Yeah, there's no time for that. And... when you get home, and then my wife looked at me, she's like, yeah, you don't look great. And I said, yeah, I'm going to phone Gerard Vosloo. So he's been the sports physician that's been working quite closely with me. And I said, Vosloo, listen, I'm experiencing some intense pain and an urge to wee. And he was like, oh, it makes sense. You're in the water for 14 hours, and he writes a script and emails it to me. And I said to my wife, please go get this. And she's like, I don't think this is a UTI. And, I'm stubborn. And she didn't think the False Bay crossing, it was the right time to do it, because I'd been struggling with a bug the week before, and I'd been vomiting and struggling with diarrhea for 5 days prior to False Bay. And I'd already...
That's intense, brother. Then you are like dehydrated beyond.
Now, when you look back at what you did, you realize you were quite a wally. So I'd been vomiting and had diarrhea for 5 days, and I'd had 3 drips in those 5 days. And it just so happened that on the Monday, we got a message to say, you guys can cross False Bay. And looking at everything that was going on at work, I felt like the school and the Hall of Fame and the partnership needed something positive. So I said to my wife, I'm doing this. And then she was like, that's not a good idea. You've been vomiting and struggling with diarrhea, etc. And I said, no, it'll be okay, and I got another drip on that Tuesday, and then I sent her a screenshot that I'd booked a ticket, my air ticket, and I think she thought I was bluffing that morning when I said I was going to go. And then when she realized, oh, this guy's being serious, I was not in the good books. And off I went to Cape Town, and then the swim was a success. So you think, oh, happy days. And then obviously where I am with the story now is with you, and thanking Tux and Rocco Mating and everyone. And then I'm lying in the bath at home. My wife's getting a script for a UTI, and then my daughters came into the bathroom, and they're like, "Daddy, you look a little bit yellow." So I said, no, man. And I get out the bath and I look in the mirror and I thought, oh, yeah, you do look yellow. So now I'm comfortable in the bath, but when I get out the bath, that's when the pain was quite intense. So then I moved to the bed and I'm like, the bed's awful. I'm going to get back in the bath. And then my wife took her time because she went to get a cappuccino.
It's like, no, this Oak's just putting on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
women can handle pain apparently more than men.
Much better than us, yeah.
Apparently, yeah.
Look, she's delivered all three of our girls without any form of pain relieving meds. She's hardcore. Yeah, that's why my girls are so hardcore, I think.
Jeez, okay.
So anyway, then she comes back and then she says, no, you look quite bad. So I said, yeah, I'm not feeling so clever. And then she said, I think this is a hospital worthy trip. And I'm like, no. Long story short, probably 2 hours go by. And then I gave her and I said, okay, let's go to the hospital. So I ended up at that urology hospital in Pretoria and they did a CT and then the lady sort of is chuckling and she says, how's that pain been? So I said, no, quite intense, but I'm fine. And she's like, yeah, you've got 4 more kidney stones to pass. And then I was like, oh, and then my wife said, I told you, you shouldn't have swum dehydrated. So I was, checked in and I was in a room with 2 legendary men. I mean, the banter was unreal. Because they said they was intrigued when a youngster is admitted. So they're like, what's your problem? So I said to this guy who's on dialysis, I said, I've got to pass some kidney stones. So he says to me, I'd rather be on dialysis than pass kidney stones.
Yeah, mind you, yeah. Pain threshold? Yeah,
Yeah, so then I thought, sure, but man, that's not a good sign. And I thought maybe he's just having me on. I mean, the pain was intense at home, but it was sort of bearable. But I then learned that the stone had only moved from the kidney into the bladder, and now it's still got to go through the urethra.
Here we go.
So that's where things it goes up a notch or two. So anyway, I'm being pumped with fluids, and these guys tell me that you're going to be talking in tongue later on this evening when it starts happening. And they were good roommates, but yeah, they also had me quite nervous and scared. And then I'm weeing and nothing seems to be happening. And I managed to survive the night, and I thought, okay, cool, this is a good sign. But then the doc did a scan of my kidney. He said, no, unfortunately, the stones, it's lodged somewhere. In short, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I'm just going to speak in layman's terms. So I said, okay, what does that mean? He says, we've got to put you under. So I said, okay, fine, it is what it is. I don't want to go under. I'm petrified of that.
Never been under before.
No, I was not. Yeah, and I'm like, okay, and you sit there, and I'm like, can't we try? Just keep pumping with fluids, and then these guys are saying, no, you want to go under. It's far better than the pain you're going to experience. So I was put under and I have this procedure and then I come out of it.
How long is the procedure?
No, I mean, it's quick. I think it's
quick.
Half an hour. Yeah.
Okay.
They go through your boy, they remove what's in the way.
Holy
and
moly.
then up you go. So
Yo.
I
Holy moly. And then you wake up.
So I wake up post-op, and let's just say that the alter ego is a problem. Sherbet. And I mean, I even looked on our family WhatsApp group. I even wrote a thing about, because they started calling me a rat mouth in the ward because of the way I was speaking. And then I sent my brother a message about being splinter and in the drains. And, I was like, sheesh, like, so there's quite creative.
It's heavy.
Anyway,
what did they give you?
I don't know.
Yes.
I phoned my boss as well in that state, which wasn't good either.
You found your boss?
And he said,
Was the call recorded?
No, but he was on speakerphone, so he's relayed his version of the story. It's also entertaining. He was not on his own in the car. But I said what I said, and he said, I take it the operation was successful. And I was like, yeah. Different. But anyway, I managed to sort of recover quickly, and it's a matter of you pass urine post-op, and then they allow you to go home. And I went home, and I thought,
same day,
happy days. Yeah, same day. Yeah.
Okay.
So operated Sunday, and then was home shortly after that. Okay. And went in Saturday midday, and then went to work the next week, and they'd put a stent in as well. The doctor had said, which I thought was something tiny, but it turns out it's actually quite a long thing.
Okay.
But it's uncomfortable is the best way to describe it. And so I carried on with life, and my wife was meant to fly to Hong Kong on Saturday morning because schools broke up. So it's a week later. It's Friday. I've made it through the week, and you're going to love this one. So I take my wife to the airport. Got the 3 girls. I've planned this. I'm going to go to the coast with my 3 daughters and join, the rest of my family who will be at the coast. Shan's going to spend a week in Hong Kong. And I drop off at the airport, and the girls say goodbye, and there's crying, and you got to distract the lighties, and I take them to go look at airplanes taking off. But while I'm standing there with the girls, I'm starting to feel a little bit funny again, and I'm thinking, "Sheesh, what is happening? Like, not today, please." My wife goes through, and then we head to the car and we drive home. And while I'm driving home, I'm starting to get a little bit hot, developing a fever. And I thought, do I tell her that? I thought, no, man, it'll be cool. It'll be cool.
Yeah, I'll be fine.
I'll be fine. So we get home. I told the older 2 girls, I'm like, you 2 going to watch, I don't know, Frozen or something, and I'm going to take Alice for a little nap. And I fall asleep with Alice. And I think maybe it's been half an hour. I was out cold for 2 hours. So was Alice. And then the bed was like wet. And I thought, what? And I'm like sweating profusely. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, man. And I'm like checking with Shan. She wasn't able to get on the first flight. So her brother's a pilot for Cathay, right?
Okay.
So she sits on like you wait to see that the plane's not full, and then you're able to fly.
Okay, gotcha.
So she wasn't able to get on, but she said to me she'll catch the 7 o'clock flight. So I thought, okay, cool. I can get through this, and I'll navigate whatever's going on with me. And then 7 o'clock came, and she said, all right, I haven't been able to get on the flight. I'm going to be flying tomorrow morning. You can come fetch me. So I pile the girls into the car and drive to the airport, and I fetch her.
And then sweating like...
She looks at me and she says, you look yellow again. So I said, yeah, I've been struggling with a fever. And she's like, why didn't you tell me? And I said, no, because I thought I'd be all right. I still think I'm going to be all right. And we get home, and anyway... Put everyone to bed, and we reset. Tomorrow morning we're going to go through this process again. And then at about 1 o'clock I just said, listen, I think it's happening.
Hospital.
It's Stones, but I know the drill now. So I'd already found a mate, Sheldon, and he fetched me and he took me to the urology hospital, and they did some blood work, and they said, listen, you're actually getting you got an infection, so it looks like an infection of the kidneys. So they pumped me with some intravenous antibiotics. And then Lance Kutsia, who was my doctor, he took over the case. He met me that morning, and he just said, yeah, you've got an infection. We're pumping with intravenous antibiotics. But he said, we're going to go in, remove the stent, because it might be causing a bit of aggravation. Yeah. And I'll have a look at things. And long story short, I developed similar pain to the week before. And this time they gave me a little bit of morphine before I went in for the procedure. And when I woke up, he said, remove the stent. You had passed 2 more kidney stones, but they were in the urethra, so he just removed those. Checked the kidneys with a camera, and he said everything was peachy again, and you can have a normal December holiday now. So I was discharged, shortly after. Exact same process as the week before, really. So
SOP for you. Let's go.
Let's go. Then we were on school holidays. The December holiday, get that month off, and my wife never got to go to Hong Kong because of that. And I'd obviously played out of my boots there, but we chilled at home for 2 days, and then we drove to the coast, and we spent a good 3 weeks at the coast, and back to training, and life goes on in preparation. Why I'm telling you all of this is because you ask about the preparation for the 55 or the 53K swim, and I'm telling you it's all about perspective. And then when you sit and you go through those scenarios or those experiences of having to pass kidney stones and the price you pay for swimming and being dehydrated and vomiting excessively during the swim, etc. It really prepares you. I know it doesn't sound all that comforting, but in hindsight, I'm very grateful for the multiple challenges that we faced leading up to that swim. The training camps, we have never had a normal training camp. When I say normal, it always starts with coinciding with the worst cold fronts in the country. We haven't had a training camp that hasn't coincided with a cold front. And the worse the conditions are when preparing for something like this, actually the better. So I've got a good sense of humor, I think. So I just laugh at the fact that it's okay, cool, cold front, swimming, vomiting, all right, we'll deal with this. Pass some kidney stones, okay, cool, once wasn't enough, do it again, lovely. December, then go and swim around in Durban, pick up E. coli, get an actual UTI. At least this time it was a UTI. This shortly after having gone through the kidney stones, cool, then get a sinus infection. It just basically all of these things that happen and don't go to plan, it tests your character. And then push through, and then we say, okay, cool, February, we're going to do a training camp. Let's see where we're all at. We fly to Cape Town. Freezing cold, winds gusting at 70 kilometers an hour. We bash a 28-kilometer swim, and it is very, very difficult, challenging conditions. Not just the wind, it's the cold. It's trying to work out, how do I breathe? How do I swim? How do I get through this? And before you know it, you've done over 10 hours of swimming in tough conditions. Get out, go back to the accommodation, regroup, reset, what worked, what didn't work. We've experimented with nutrition. You've done everything. You've learned how to now combat nausea. You've learned how to combat seasickness. And then the next day wake up and we did another 8K, and that one we did hard and fast because we needed to get to the airport, so there was no time for messing around. And you get through that, and it builds your confidence. And then you start looking back at your journey from last year, January, with your first swim, and then your double, and then camps and sickness and seasickness and combating everything. And then you get to the night before a 53K swim, and you start thinking, okay, I've gotten through this, I've gotten through that, and you start to build up quite a nice resume. And it just gives you peace of mind because, well, if I was able to do that or get through that, I can certainly do this. And then on top of it, you're getting all this support and love coming in from multiple angles, and it just really psychs you up. And then in between all of that, you've got people in the team and in that house with you, and there's so much banter, and there's music, and there's putting on of beanies and dancing and acting like an absolute wally to calm the nerves and to try and sort of bring things down a little bit. And there's excitement, and Piet had his wife there, I had my wife there. This time we haven't done a training camp or a crossing with any of us having our partners there. Absolute game changer. Like usually rushing around and prepping your flasks and your meals. We were now doing it as a team of 6, and we're preparing these. I think we bought 2 loaves of bread, and we're doing these peanut butter sandwiches.
Peanut butter sandwiches as part of your nutrition, during the swim.
On white bread with jam, so it actually goes down because peanut butter gets stuck in the mouth. And there's flasks everywhere, and there's pure carb that we're mixing into the flasks. We want to get the calculation right. So it's hilarious because we're sitting there going, and I'm like, I don't like to complicate things. So I'm just like, Piet, sort it out. And then he's like, you're the maths teacher. I'm like, the maths lit teacher. Actually, so there's a difference. There's a big difference. But the maths lit teachers have personality. So I say shots fired. So I'm saying to Piet, look, my 3 brothers are engineers. Let's just get hold of one of them. He's like, no, man, we must do this ourselves. And I'm like, okay, you do it. And then he runs the calc, and he's like. And then he thinks it's done. So we started mixing. He's like, no, something's not right here. The calculation was wrong. So we remedied that. But like now, there's spilled white powder everywhere. So I go get my credit card and start cutting lines, and we're just having some fun. And you know what I mean? It's just getting a good laugh. And the ladies are there getting that balance right, and then you pack everything, and everything is sorted. And Thirsty came on board as a sponsor. They sponsored us 1,000 liters. I'm exaggerating, but it was nuts of Rehydrate, their sport drink, and water and towels and caps. Awesome. And so we're messing around, trying on caps, messing with the towels, just having some fun.
Yes.
And then
just to calm the
man. And as I said, there's music's playing, and then it's a lekker song, so you start dancing and having a lach or whatever the case is, and then you're like, whoa, it's 11 o'clock in the evening, and you're like, we're going to be getting up at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning to make our way to Oceana, which is where where we're going to launch the boats. So we need to get some sleep. But then then you look at your phone and you're like, holy cow, there's 300 messages or whatever the case is, and it's not really the greatest time to go through messages. And and then like my father will be online, and he's like, hey, go to sleep, my son. And I'm like, okay, I will shortly. And you just try to reply to a couple of messages. And then I slept so well. That's the best I've actually slept before, even from a training camp swim to an actual crossing. Best sleep I've had. Short, but like deep
sleep.
Didn't roll around, tossing and turning like previously. And I think it's a combination of, just everything I've mentioned. The experiences you've had, what you've learned, and how you've improved your game plan leading into it. And also flew in on the Sunday, and we only did the crossing on the Wednesday. So had a couple of nights, we had a team meeting as well with Derek, who's the captain, just discussing conditions and what he can see coming our way, which also eases the mind. And then we went to bed, and before we knew it, we were up and back in the kitchen at I think 5:30 actually. We met in the kitchen, And again, you just go over everything. We check that we're all sorted, and then as a collective, we packed the car and we head down to the car, and then we drove from Azefontein to Oceana. And that was probably, I don't know, an hour and a half drive type of thing. And in the car, exact same thing. Absolute banter and jokes and laughing. And there's the Crow and the Bone playlist. And we're going to that playlist and we're picking songs. And I like punk rock and playing some punk rock songs from the good old days, listening to a bit of Offspring and things like that,
Nice.
And it was just good fun. And then, as I said, we arrived at Oceana and we're in a good frame of mind and in a good space. And the boat's already packed, ready. And we actually had a moment's silence for one of our boys who had passed away the week before, which also struck a chord. And there were 2 old boys who were there as well with us. And, just if I think of that send-off, it was very calm and moving at the same time and just gave you some perspective.
Yes.
And then we started our trip to Robben Island. And the trip to Robben Island, there was a lot of fog, so you couldn't see too much. And then it just sort of opened up. And I was so worried about suffering from motion sickness on my trip to Robben Island. So what was in my mind that whole trip was, don't get seasick. Let's
don't get
conquer
seasick
that
on the way to
I don't want to
swim.
Don't want to start the swim nauseous. So I'm sitting there. No, it's happened before. It's not fun. And then, I got to the island, and they're running this live cam, which is a little bit different. So
I watched a bunch.
Did you watch?
Yeah, that was too cool. Yes.
Yeah. So you also you change a little bit of the way that you maybe want to behave and speak, which is also sometimes a little bit frustrating because there's things that the Crow and I want to do, or the jokes that you want to make, but then you're on a live cam now. Okay, sweet, we'll behave. And we're putting on our anti-chafe and sorting everything out, and then you got to swim to Robben Island, before the actual start, which. So the boat stops, what are we, maybe 200 meters off the island. So we jump in the water and Piet and I start swimming to the island. It smells quite funky. I think it's all the kelp, so it's not the most attractive swim. And then you've got to climb over a whole lot of rocks to get to a point where I guess Derek is satisfied that you're far enough onto the island that he can start. And he's telling you, just don't cut your wetsuits whilst climbing over the rocks because it's quite sharp. So Piet and I were laughing because we said we're more like mountaineers now than anything else. So you're climbing and you're slipping and you're falling and you're landing in kelp that really smells, and then we got far enough, we turned and we looked, and then give you the thumbs up, and then you climb back over everything you've just climbed over to get to that point.
My goodness, how much energy exertion is that?
No, nothing. It's more just it's humorous, I would say. We found it quite entertaining, and then we get into the water, and all along we said, let's see how long we can swim next to one another, because there is it does assist in the confidence and just the general comfort in the water when there's someone else in the water with you.
Close by, yes.
So it lasted all of an hour.
So 1 hour only.
1 hour only, and then Piet left me. But I knew it was going to happen, and it doesn't bother me. We discussed these things. He's a better swimmer. That's as simple as that. So we swam the first hour together, which meant we had 1 feed together, and we knew the plan. And I knew Derek said that when the boat starts, moving out of my line of view, that that's it, they're going, and I mustn't let my competitive juices flow and chase the boat, because I am very competitive. But this was not about being competitive. This was far greater. So just put that oak to bed and just carried on goofing. And off we went, we swam, and I would say the first sort of hour was probably the toughest. I just think because there was a lot of hype and a lot of excitement. And that's when the head was quite noisy, because I keep dialing in with my body. I'm like, okay, there's no seasickness. There's I'm not feeling nauseous. And just check in. And how's the shoulder feeling? Excuse me, whatever the case is. And also starting to think what if we don't make it? There are some of those little negative thoughts that creep in every now and then. And I just want to basically get into a rhythm, and then that stuff it stops. But it sometimes takes a little bit of time. At least it did for me. Okay. And I would say after about an hour, I started to sort of just be a little bit calmer. I was at peace with where I was and the water, and very much a little bit more in a zone in which I wanted to be for however long it was going to take. I, in my mind, and Piet in his mind, we had worked out 24 hours for him and probably 30 hours for me. And I knew it was going to be a long, long swim, and that's as simple as that. But what I absolutely loved about this swim was when the sun set. And that's when I really got into I think they call it a flow state. But I think for me, it's just as simple as that. My mind went blank and I just swam. And the sun set and the stars come out, and it's absolutely beautiful. You can't describe it. And put my head down, and it was business time. It's as simple as that. And you sort of stop for your feeds every 30 minutes, and those 30 minutes almost feel like that. You can't believe it's been 30. The boat signals it's time for you to come in for a feed, and you swim up to the boat and you take your feed.
For both of you.
So we had 2 boats. Piet had his support crew, and I had my support crew.
So each
had their own boat, yeah.
And how far ahead is the boat from you?
So the boat is actually, it's right next to you.
Okay,
next to you. You want to you swim. It varies anything from sort of 3 meters to, I guess, at times when you stray away to 30 meters.
Okay.
There are times where 1 or 2 things, like the smell of the petrol gets to you a little bit, or you just get a little bit annoyed with having the boat there, so you sometimes drift off, or you just can't swim straight, whichever one it is. So I like to sometimes just drift off a bit, and then you realize you're a little bit isolated and you feel a bit and then you make your way back over to the boat. But it's them, and they've got eyes on you, and everything's fine. There were a lot of seals. I think the seals were there with us almost throughout the entire swim.
Really?
I almost got the feeling like every time I looked below, I'm like, oh, there's some seals again. And there was one time there was an aggressive seal who apparently gave Piet a bit of a nudge. He didn't dare give me a nudge. I wonder why. I must have a chat with the crow. But
imagine you swimming in the middle of the night and there's a seal going at you.
Yeah.
And you don't know it's a seal. You think it's
that's exactly what happened to
great
Piet.
white, brother.
Yeah. He got nudged, and he got a big skrik, and then the feedback came on the radio, and they said, Chris, just be aware.
Papa seal is in the water.
There's a seal. He's quite territorial. Yeah. And they swim all over you and around you, and every now and then you make contact with one, and that's just the way it is. But it's nice because you're not alone. I know that on the boat they saw, I think, 3 whales during the course of the swim.
That's crazy.
So I think the crew get to see a bit more than us.
Is there any comms? Is there any way of communicating with you during the swim, or not really?
No.
They signal, and then when you sort of float in, and because you're not allowed to touch the boat, right?
Yes, yeah, so no touching of the boat, and literally you can see them waving their hand, and then and you're breathing. Well, I breathe bilaterally, so it's every 3 it's left, then every 3 it's right. So you are keeping an eye on the boat. And so when I see Jacques standing up, then I know, okay, it's time to feed. It's as simple as that. Then you make your way to the boat, and then we were drinking that pure carb again in rooibos tea with honey. So you glug that down, and then you'd maybe
give you warm.
Yeah, yeah. So we boiled we had a lot of boiling water with us. We had a lot of flasks. I think we had it's probably 7 liters of boiled water with us on the boat.
Okay,
and then you've pre-mixed your carb, but in a concentrate ratio, so that you'd put in 100 mils of the carb concentrate, and then you'd add 200 mils of the rooibos tea. So you're taking your 300 mils of liquid, and you're looking at 80-90 grams every half an hour
of pure carb. Yes. Okay.
But when you swim for a long time, that taste becomes quite mundane. You get a little bit over it. So every now and then they'll give you a treat. So there's like a soft a rosebud. It's a soft sweet that we went and bought. There were these little sweets that look like rosebuds,
and that's your treat.
You get that, and like those soft jelly babies or a whisper, whatever. But you don't know what you're going to get.
Okay, it's a surprise.
It's a surprise. There we go. And then you say like, I want to have a. Quincy knows the inside joke there. It's a killer. And then I'd ask for some white bread, and you get a peanut butter sandwich. You try that. If that doesn't go down well, then you say, okay, next feed, let's do this. And then, you're drinking that thirsty sport drink, and you're getting a bit of rehydrating essentially. So you'd have your pure carb and the rehydrate. Then always, I like to wash it down with some water. And then you've got a whisper that you may be, chewing on in your mouth, or whatever they're chewing on, sorry. And that's literally how our feeding system worked. And we knew we had success with it at the training camps, so you just basically stick to the plan. However, what we did do differently this time is we had apple puree, baby food. So the night, 2 nights before the swim, my dietitian, Nikki de Villiers, who's helped me for years, said, just been doing some thinking, buy yourself some apple puree. Now, you shouldn't try something new during...
Right before.
No, bad idea, apparently. But I trust Nikki with my life, so I was like, whatever, went to the Pick and Pay or the Spar, and the next day I bought tons of apple puree, but in that, where you just take the cap off and you can just slip it down. So I chucked that into the box, and I was swimming at the one feed. I said, Kunsi, let's hit some baby food. And it went down like a dream. So then I said, keep that coming. And literally every feed then I was just slicking on the apple puree, and it didn't cause any issues. So, you know, sometimes it's okay to take a risk, and maybe it works out. It worked out. It worked really well.
So every 30 minutes we feed.
Yeah.
We hydrate, and you're enjoying the peace, the stars. It's the middle of the night. You've got yourself in a flow state. 1, 2, 3, breathe. 1, 2, 3, breathe. 1, 2, 3, breathe. Okay. You've got the inspiration, the motivation in your mind. It's for the boys. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than the schools. It's bigger than all of us. It's laying a foundation in the future, and the boat is here. Then you drift off, and you come back, and you drift off. What are you saying to yourself during those moments between? Because me and my wife spoke about it last night. The most difficult thing to do is to think of nothing. Because I don't think that's how we're wired. So what replays in your mind?
Yeah, you really want to know?
Yes.
No, look, I hate to be that guy, but my mind was quite vacant. There wasn't a lot going on. To be fair, when there are moments of where you do think about things, it depends what's happening with the body. Is what I learned. I had a shoulder that felt impinged at a point, and I said to the crew, my shoulder's giving me issues, right? So there's a moment of sort of pain or doubt. And then I'll start thinking about things that maybe my father said to me, like when I was little or growing up, and that I'm not allowed to give up, and we Oldnalls never give up, you know. So then you can hear your dad's voice in your head when you were like 4 or 5 years old, showering with them, and you know, then it takes you to start thinking about your childhood and moments with your siblings and your dad or your mum, and you start thinking about how you grew up, and then I start feeling quite grateful for having had the parents that I have, and I think of my brothers a lot and my sister, and like family. You go to I at least go to a happy space at times.
Good.
Which it's great, and then you think a little bit about. I think about all my siblings and where they are in their lives, and I start replaying our lives over in my head, and there's a lot of gratitude that I experience. And then before you know it, they calling you for a feed. I'm like, geez, how could that have been 30 minutes already? You know?
So it's like a trance.
It's a trance. It is a trance. And then sort of the pain then subsides, and you go back to swimming. And then sometimes I replay my life over in my head. I start thinking about like my first memory or whatever the case is. And then I realize I'm swimming and I'm thinking about absolutely nothing, because you get lost in your thoughts. It honestly depends on the different the stages of the swim. There's times when you're nervous and I think excited at the start. There's times when there's a bit of pain and a bit of trial, and you've got to work through it, and then you maybe have your material that you go to. There were times where I just randomly thought of some of those videos that the boys had made, and that made me smile. Then you start thinking about, we're actually gonna pull this thing off. We're gonna make this is going to happen, especially when we were made aware that we could see the lighthouse, not the lighthouse, the light of the lighthouse. Is a big difference.
That's a very sensitive point, because when we spoke about it off camera, when you see the lighthouse, you're like, okay, we've arrived. We are 16 kilometers away.
Yeah, it's still a way to go. So
16 kilometers far, my friend.
It is far, but when you know how far you're swimming, 16K seems like know a chip and a putt. You're like, oh, cool, we're there.
So do you at that time? I'm just thinking how my mind works. At that time, you're like, okay, so it's 55. I've swam almost double what I still need to swim. I've got it in me. Is that how you're speaking to yourself?
Exactly.
Okay.
No, you got it. You hit the nail. So it's like, okay, cool. Well, if I'm seeing that light, I get a little bit excited about the fact that you're going to do this. You're going to overcome this one. We've got this one in the bag. But like you say, probably still going to be swimming for another 5 or 6 hours.
It's a long time.
It is a long, yeah, you're right. It's a long time and a lot can go wrong, but it's like a little carrot being dangled.
Yes.
That the light at the end of the
It's your
tunnel.
first win.
It's your first win, yeah. So, and then, if I think of other swims or moments when it has been tough, sometimes you think of all the people that give you grief and the haters, as we refer to them. Yeah.
That's fuel.
You have no idea. That makes me far more lethal.
You look like the type that can use that for fuel.
Oh, geez. I just love it. And then you start playing over in your head those one-liners and all those people. You want to launch them, trust me. You have to contain yourself. But then you just shut them up by being successful and accomplishing your goal.
It's the only way to.
Oh, man. You know what that's doing to them.
Yes.
So I enjoy it, and all the rubbish you hear about yourself via, whatever the case is. And it annoys me. But I just I'm a little bit of a nutter. I store that.
Yes.
You put it somewhere special
for later use.
Yeah.
So we're approaching the island now. Did you know that you have to swim around the island to the back, or was that served to you in real time? How did that? Because that's pretty important information, in my opinion.
No, it is important, and I think because there was so much going through my mind at that team meeting. I know Derek had spoken about don't get too excited when you see the island, but in my head there was just still so much I was still processing, because this meeting happened on the Monday night with Derek, where he was explaining the logistics and the nitty-gritty of the actual swim. And I think Piet took note of it far more than me. And yes, can see the island, and I'm like, where the hell are we going? Why are we still going? Because you swim, if that's the island, we're swimming to the backside of the island.
Okay.
I should probably talk in geographical terms, but I'm not going to do that either.
Yeah.
Because as I said, I keep things simple. I'm like, I'm going to swim until they tell me you're there. But that last probably even 2 hours, I would say, I thought, sheesh, man, you can see land. The island is there, but you continue going until you swim around the island, because that's the only place you can actually land, essentially, apparently. And that was just tough, because I thought, I'm there, but you got to keep going. And I'm waiting for them to give me some Coca-Cola, because I know then that they said to me, we'll hit you with a bit of the good stuff when there's maybe about half an hour to go. Yeah, so
with a bit of the good stuff.
Yeah. And then you get that.
I love that.
There's a bit of Coca-Cola, and I'm thinking,
Sugar.
okay, there we go. Now I know I'm there. And I mean, you saw in the video that we swam, and then Piet got into the water with me.
That's amazing.
She's like, tell me about it.
So he just swam almost 19 hours. He's like, I'm waiting for you, brother.
Yes.
When he saw you, he's like, let me come fetch you. He swam to you, and then you guys swam out together.
That was special.
Amazing.
And there was banter as well. That's also, I think, tells you a lot about the team. I was like, it's about bloody time. And then he gets in and he sees I'm wearing 2 caps. He's like, that's why he's swimming so slowly.
Because of the double cap.
Yeah, so it was just nice that we still, even after all that time, had a good sense of humor, and we still were able to have a laugh. And then, those last, what was it? Only about 150 meters, I guess, 200 meters, but still it meant a lot. Then I was crying in those goggles. I was ecstatic. So it's not
happy.
That doesn't describe it. And then we have this rule that we don't. It's like you've got to swim into the sand. So even if your stomach is tight, you've got to like almost claw it and grab it with your hands.
And
not
with your feet first.
Yeah, no, it's all. So that's why, because a couple of people asked, like, guess what the hell were you doing then? I'm like, we have to swim, literally through the sand, feel it, grab it with your hands, like feel the accomplishment, and then you stand up and your body's got to remember how to walk again after 20 hours. And then Piet, he moved out of the camera, which he didn't have to do, and then he came back in and joined me on the island.
Amazing.
And then we were hugging, and he was saying all sorts of things, and it was really special. And then he whipped out the South African flag, and we stood there, and we celebrated, in I think in a good fashion.
Amazing. Technical questions.
Okay.
What did you weigh before the swim and after the swim?
So
Did you measure that?
I did.
Okay.
I was weighing 84
Before the swim.
Before the swim. But then post-swim, your body retains a lot of water. So I actually, 2, 3, 4 days after, I was weighing 89.
Really?
I was. And I don't want to get into the science and get it all wrong, but I think the best way it was described to me, so I'm actually managed by a guy called Jonah Young, and he assists me with all the training, prep and planning. And I think your body goes into shock and it wonders, when are you going to do this to me again? And therefore stores whatever it can. So I didn't look that big. I mean, my 32 pants were still fitting me, but I was standing on the scale. I'm like, she's 89. And then it took a couple of days, or actually it took about 2 weeks for my weight to normalize.
Back to
And then
84.
I was back down to 84. Yeah.
Interesting. I thought you would have thrown a whole bunch of weight because of the exertion and the I mean, that's like nothing else you will ever put your body through. I think that's a lot harder than Ironman. Because it's the same the whole time. There's no repetition, change. I've never done an Ironman. Have you done an Ironman?
I have. Yeah, I have.
What's harder?
What's difficult about the Ironman is that you're training 3 disciplines. So I would say it's the build-up to that event that's difficult.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's 3 unique skill sets that you have to develop at the same time while being fatigued.
Yes. And then the day itself, I guess you weigh, for me, if you look at time factor, Ironman, if you prep 10 hours, this took double that.
Double the time.
The guys don't like you saying what's more difficult than the other, but I've done both. And in the end of the day, I think if your mind's in the right space, you'll do whatever. So it's a simple
Great answer, but what's harder?
No, the swim was harder.
The swim was harder.
It was harder.
I would put more weight on the swim being harder. Definitely.
It's 20 hours. You're on your own. Bar the feeds every 30 minutes, but you really do have to dig deep. It's tough.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
When is the next swim?
So it looks like it's going to be, the third swim will be next year, February.
Next year, Feb.
For a number of reasons. Yeah.
Okay.
I think Derek Fraser, our captain's confirmed that he's got to have shoulder surgery. And he said he'll be good to go in Feb again. And then I think for the financial year, it's better for us from a fundraising perspective to do it next year, February.
Just before the financial year end. Okay,
it does mean it's a 10-month goal, and here we go again.
And where's the third swim happening?
False Bay. So that was the first swim, November the 22nd. We swam across False Bay. We'll be going back there to do the double. So from Simonstown to Royal Ulster and then back to Simonstown, or the logistics will be confirmed, but let's just say 66 Ks, because you'll be doing False Bay twice, which is a swim that hasn't been done before. So we did Robin to Dustin, never been done before. It was a solo swim. There's 4 ladies who smashed it in a relay format, and then we've done it now in the format that we did. Yeah.
Relay format meaning I swim an hour, jump off. She swims an hour, she swims an hour.
Yeah. They went 2 hours, and they each, they were rotating every 2 hours.
Come on.
They're lovely ladies.
Come on.
Yeah.
No, respect. I'm just kidding.
They've done
I can't even swim 50 meters.
Yeah, they've done a lot for open water swimming in South Africa as well. And they also gave us a lot of respect when we did what we did. So I think that's the lacquer thing about the open water swimming community, is everyone's so humble, and at least from my perspective, everyone that I've dealt with is just friendly and get behind each other and support one another.
Beautiful. So Feb, it's going to be a double. We have a minute to prepare. Between now and then, are you still in the water every day? Are you still in the water every week? How is your training going to?
You'll love this because you played a role in it. So we had that podcast with you in Feb.
Yes, a couple of months ago.
Yeah. Crazy. And there is a parent at our school, Glenn Grundy, who saw the podcast.
He reached out, yes.
And it got him thinking. And he's based in the States, and his son is a boarder at the school. And so what he did is, it probably took him about 2 weeks after the podcast, after he had released it, and then he got hold of me, and he said he wanted to speak to me. And he said his company wants to channel a portion of their spend to enable me, along with his son and his son's mentor. I'll explain it to you now, as well as his son's Form 1 tutor and Jacques from the South African Hall of Fame to summit Kilimanjaro, because his son wants to raise funds for the legacy program and give back to these boys. So his son's currently in grade 11.
Okay.
Right. At Boys High, you have your Form 1 tutor, who's Luke Allen. So when his son was in grade 8 at Boys High, Luke Allen was the teacher responsible for the 23 boys.
Okay.
Then Keegan McIntosh was his mentor. So at Boys High, we have a mentor-mentee system. So when you're in grade 8, you get assigned a matric boy who takes you under his wing and looks after him. This Glenn Grundy's son is now in grade 11. And he's saying his son wants to give back after having seen the podcast and what we're all doing and why we're doing it. How can they give back? And he said, this is what he believes we should do. Let's summit Killy. He'll fund it.
Amazing.
And off we go. So we're going to be summiting, well, the climb will start the 5th of July. But
that's now.
It's now, yeah, it's now. And we've got our kit, we've got our bags, we've got our boots, everything is sorted, and we've got to start working on our marketing campaign now. But it speaks to, so many different things about Boys High. You've got, I was the senior housemaster at School House, so you've got the ex-senior housemaster, you've got the Form 1 tutor, you've got the mentor and the mentee, which just, it's wonderful because, I look at it like Luke Allen started working at School House with me, and sort of I've been his mentor in many ways, and Keegan's mentored the boy in grade 11 who's going to be doing this summit with us. And you've got a father who's seen the potential of the legacy program, and he's saying, let's go do this thing. So in between, we'll be summiting Killy now in July, and that's happened like that. So in between now, what am I doing? I'm spinning and I'm running and cycling and running, and I had to change the whole dynamic of my training regime.
Slightly for the climb, obviously.
Yeah.
How does that climb work?
How does that climb work? Yeah. So I've been so focused on the trilogy, to be honest with you, and this all started happening 3-4 weeks before the second swim. So I said, listen, Mr. Grundy, let me just get through this swim first, because it is a world first. I've actually got to get that. He's like, no, you'll get that done, no problem. And I'm like, it's not so easy, chap. And he's like, he wants to go because he's got that personality, which is fantastic. He's like, let's get this done, let's knock this thing into shape. And I'm like, I've got to first conquer that, and he said, okay, fine, go get it done. So, it's only been, 3-4 weeks now. But I see tickets are paid for. We're flying on the 5th of July. And then I think you got 2 days and you start hiking, and we're hiking over a 7-day period. And then we're flying back. That's as much as I can tell you.
Okay. So you hike up, there's a camp, you pitch a tent, or it's already...
Yeah, so, okay, I know a little bit more. You hike over 7 days, you hit the point, you climatize, then you wake up the next day and you go and you climatize, etc. And I think you're hiking like 15 Ks a day on average is what I've picked up. My dad summited Killy. I remember I was in matric.
Okay.
And I just remember one day my dad wasn't at home, and my mum was like, no, your dad's gone to climb Killy. And that's my dad. He just gets things done, and he comes home and we're like, hey D-Rock, welcome home. Where were you? I just climbed Killy, boys. And we're like, sweet, how was it? And he said hundreds. And he was just he's naturally fit and was running, so I'm assuming that our spinning and running will suffice. I hope. We'll find out.
I've spoken to 2 people in our studio that have both successfully summited Everest, and that's
another level.
That's a different thing, because it's over a very long period of time, and you sort of go up, and then you have to come down, and then you go up, and then you have to come down, then you go up and you stay there, and then you go up even further and you come down. So it's like a whole thing. So Killy is just up, climatize, up, climatize, up, climatize, done.
Look, it's different for me, because it's sort of taking that teaching role and really extending it, because you're now going to be responsible for a boy who's
17-year-old.
It's his life.
So
I'm excited about it, but I also am well aware of the responsibility. And I've also got his mentor, who is only 21. You're also responsible for him. So I'm excited about it, but also understand the gravity of the situation. I'm very grateful for the opportunity, but for me, the first and foremost is going to be, they're my boys. Both of them are my boys.
Of course.
And
they'll always be your boys.
So is Luke Allen. They're all my boys. Got to look after all of them. So it's good. It's going to be a completely different element, and I'm looking forward to the challenge. And I think we're going to have a really, really good time. We're going to make memories that will last forever.
Brother, I'm super proud of you, super proud of what you've achieved, super proud to call you a friend. It is absolutely amazing. We will share all the links, Els. all the links of how you guys can get involved, follow your journey, open your hearts. Look at this machine. He's doing this for the boys that actually can't afford to go to a school. By the way, let me speak on the school for 5 minutes before we end the show.
Sure.
It's like I grew up in a Soviet country, communist country, where there's lots of propaganda, and it's a propaganda machine. You know, when you grow up in a communist regime, capitalism's bad, and this is bad, and the people they can't, they can't even afford food, and you get brainwashed. Okay, I'm going to bring that to my high school career. Us having played rugby, I didn't play rugby, but our school having played rugby, it was always a thing. When you play boys' high, it's a thing. It's like a thing. There's that intimidation factor. So the teachers always used to speak a little bit negatively about boys' high. Obviously, because they've got their reasons. It's propaganda, and we are in this camp now, not trying to create hate. But when I went there, I was like a little bit reserved. I'm like, let's check this out. The friendliest staff. Everyone called Elsie ma'am. Everyone.
Yeah. And there wasn't one boy that you passed that didn't greet you.
Yeah.
Everyone. So I called her ma'am for like 2 weeks because I was like, she's getting used to this ma'am thing now. Every teacher greeted me. Let me tell you about this room. So I was in the old library that eventually then became the teacher's lounge. That's a kick-ass room, by the way.
It's quite something. Yeah.
I really like it. You can feel the history. You can immediately, when you walk in, when you drive in, you can feel that there's a few places in the world that I've been, monasteries and stuff, where I can feel there's an energy in this area. And I don't need to tell you this, but I have to, because when you walk into that school, you can feel that this is a special place. So you are selflessly risking your life to give boys the opportunity that can't afford the tuition, the lodging on their own. Their parents maybe not in a good position financially. Maybe they don't have parents. Most of them don't. To be able to give them that, and then through their actions going forward, after they learn what they learned there, it's like an explosion. It's like a fire that will continue growing long after we're gone. So well done. My experience at Boys High was top tier, 10 out of 10.
All the boys have been doing is talking about what a legend you are.
No,
they loved having you there. So boys coming past my office saying, I want to be like Uncle Bobby. I want to be like Uncle Bobby.
Shit, that's too
so
kind.
I think
that's very kind.
Our boys really enjoyed having you there, and I'm glad you were able to experience them. I think I need to get you into my maths lit classroom though. You need to come and meet some of the boys that I teach. Absolute champs.
Beautiful. I can't wait. I will jump on the opportunity the moment it's presented. But we will attach all the links, all the information. Please open your hearts and give generously. This man absolutely deserves all the success that he has achieved and will achieve going forward. You're a legend. The Bone Machine.
Thanks for having me. No, I enjoyed it as always.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.